was introduced in October of 2020. At that point, I was introduced because I was going through a problem with some sciatic pain from a cyst on my spinal cord. So I was introduced by Carol McDonald and Peter, and encouraged to, stay with it for 90 days and see what happens. And I've been blessed ever since.
Tell us what some of the conditions that you were dealing with.
Okay, sure. I'll just real quick. When I first got introduced, I had sciatic pain. The first day I put the patch on, my pain reduced by 40%, and I could actually sit on both butt cheeks at the same time. And then by the end of the week, the pain was relieved. So within 4 days of Eon and X39, I went through with the surgery. And after the surgery, I healed 4 weeks ahead of time. And I did not use any of the pain meds or morphines once I came home from the hospital, and barely have a scar at all. So my surgeon was really, really kind of blown away about that. But prior to the patch, can I say I had stage 3 esophageal cancer. And so I'll tell you a little bit about that real quick. I'll just read through it so I don't get off track and I don't cry, if that's okay. Let's see. In 2015, in January 2015, I was diagnosed with stage 3 esophageal cancer, and only 1 in 4 survived. My prognosis was not good. And even with the treatments that were going to be pretty barbaric, they were giving me approximately 2 years of life. So we went through that, and I had chemo radiation simultaneously for 6 weeks. After that, I prepared for a surgery that was a 10-hour surgery. It's called the Beast in the medical field, most barbaric surgery known to mankind. And the 10-hour surgery involved removing the esophagus, 21 lymph nodes, deflating my right lower chamber of my lungs so that my diaphragm could be pulled over and placed there. My stomach was stretched, through the diaphragm and pulled up to my throat right about here where my collarbone is, and attached with my colon, part of my colon. I had blood transfusions, went through the whole thing. I was sent, even after my hospital stay of 10 days, was sent home, being fed through my intestines through tubes. So anyway, we had a lot of complications through the whole thing too. There were just numerous complications, one after the other. And, we all invest in our medical insurance in the medical field to take good care of us, but sometimes they let us fall through the cracks. So to make a long story short, they told my husband at one point that they would just keep me comfortable with medication until I passed. There was nothing else that they could do. And he was an amazing partner through it all. We had been together several years, but we had also just gotten married 17 days prior to the diagnosis. So we were to start, a really big adventure together. And here we were being told it was going to end. So anyway, my husband and my sister said, that's unacceptable. You can't quit on her. She can't quit on her. But secretly inside, I did have one foot in the dirt. I was giving up, and I was that diagnosis. So I went to an acupuncturist. My sister helped. I went and found another form of energy medicine, and I have to promote energy medicine. Energy medicine helps our body do what it was meant to do in the first place. And that made a significant change in my life, significant. So as I moved on and I got better and better, I was one of the 4 that was surviving. And my family supported me and they worked with me. I've been on a lifetime disability. In the surgery, they also severed the vagus nerve. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but it controls the transmission from the brain to your cardio, your respiratory, your fight or flight, your digestive, and the pelvic area for anything going on in the pelvic area, including sexual. So my communication was cut off. And so all of these systems sporadically would go in different directions all the time. And I didn't know what was wrong until I found out that's what they did. And So we started to work with that.
How was that discovered?
Actually, I found out through a support group through Europe that they do that. And I called my surgeon and said, do you purposely sever the vagus nerve? And she said, why would you even want to know? And I said, because I'm trying to live and I'm trying to teach the other three how they can survive. So, and I have a perpetual cough over production of mucus. So I would vomit a lot. Just a lot of things were crazy. Dumping syndrome, where you would just have diarrhea and throwing up simultaneously without warning. I would go into fight or flight and just not know how to calm or react. And so once I realized they cut the vagus nerve because it webs out over those lymph nodes, I then knew what I was dealing with. So then I could find ways to help, work with that. And the PEMF device I was using, I was putting on different systems that were having trouble, and I was kind of balancing them out, kind of doing a pseudo, transmission to them. And that worked out really well, but I was still suffering cognitively from the brain damage that comes with cancer treatment. And it was very difficult for me. I mean, I even had my ex-husband came over and he helped me pretty much learn how to drive and make decisions again in a car and where to find things because my brain was so damaged. So at one point of using the patches, probably about 5.5 months, I was at a friend, Sharon Robinson's house with Carol and a bunch of other people. And somebody asked a question. And usually I stay in the background on these things, but all of a sudden I popped out and I answered the question in great length and explained it. And I started to cry because I could never do that before. I couldn't read a page on a book and explain what I read. And I had come from a big corporate job and, dealing with multi-million-dollar contracts and legal forms. And here I felt like anybody who met me after cancer just thought I was dumb. And, I wasn't dumb. I was just locked inside myself. So that has continued to get very good, much better. I have to sleep sitting up because I have no flaps. I can aspirate and it can go into my lung. The stomach acids, even when I eat, I can't bend right over and tie my shoes. I have to wait for that food to work its way down because I have no flaps. The stomach comes right here. The overproduction of mucus and coughing was an issue. I was coughing and having trouble breathing all the time. My scars from my esophagectomy are brutal. They're kind of almost like an open heart surgery. It's from the sternum down to the belly button. And then the back was a large scar, 2 large scars from drain tubes and from them operating on the lung where they permanently deflate it. The other scars were up under the breasts where all the drain tubes were. And so for 7 years, I haven't been able to wear a bra. And that might not seem like a big deal to anybody else, but socially going places, I was very uncomfortable. I'm about to turn 58 years old. I don't have aftermarket parts. Everything's factory. So things don't set where they used to be. And I didn't feel comfortable just not having things in place. And I had to really struggle to dress accordingly to actually feel confident to go somewhere. I can say happily now that that has changed. And past several months, and I'm wearing undergarments and things like that for 8, 9 hours, 10 hours at a time, where I couldn't keep them on 15 minutes because of the nerve pain and the scar tissue. So that's amazing. My mucus and throwing up and the coughing at night has decreased tremendously. I have still remained off of 14 medications that I had been on, some for 20 years before the cancer was diagnosed. And I don't take any prescribed drugs. I really don't even take supplements. I'm on patches. And it's been beautiful. I had the back surgery, like I said, barely any scars. My cognitive is amazing. It's just getting stronger and better every day, which is so exciting. The hair, the skin has improved. I've put on healthy weight. I was I looked sick, even though I looked healthy and I was in a great place from where I came from. I still wasn't the same or in a place. I didn't feel whole. And I didn't feel alive inside. Whereas now I've put on healthier weight. I feel like I'm the very best version of me ever. And I feel my light growing. And the light I used to see was a train coming to hit me. And that light is so different. I also got faced with a surgery that they wanted to do 3 years ago on my neck, right after I had the back surgery. My doctor was so sad to tell me that, the pain I was having in my neck that was at level 8 to 12. He called my husband in and he showed us how badly I needed a surgery. And I said, I don't want another one. I don't. Give me some time. Well, 3 years now, this past March is 3 years. I've avoided that surgery. I no longer have any pain. I can move my neck. I can lift. I can do everything normally. I don't even think about the fact that I needed a surgery, which is just amazing. My sleep is better. I'm not vomiting in the middle of the night. Like the brain will go off and wake you if that fluid is starting to go a different place. It's just your body reacts, so it wakes you. And so I'm sleeping much better. Let's see, I've had COVID 2 times. One, I was in the hospital for 15 days because I have that deflated lung and it was a problem. My doctor was really good. She called the hospital every day and she scolded them. Don't you do anything to her. Don't you mess up anything she's done. She's a miracle, and don't give her a lot of drugs. And you just leave her, have her patches and her PMF device and we'll get her home. And I got home 15 days faster than they had predicted. And yeah, I'm doing great. It did affect my cognitive again, but like I said, that's all reversed. So my cardio is better with the vagus nerve severed. When I would bend over to pet my little corgi, she's a little low rider, or pick up anything, I would spin and I would need to hold on to a counter or a person when I came back up because I would be spinning and I would have trouble breathing. So that's not happening as much anymore. And I started seeing a naturopath here in town and at Orange Advanced Medical. And I introduced them to the patches and they've been wonderful. But in telling about my story, the doc looked up a few things and some of the things he found indicated that these improvements or things that I'm having happen, and even some of the quirky things that I don't want to happen, can only happen if the vagus nerve is responding. And it's completely severed. So maybe it's not anymore. So that's my hope. My digestive,
Wow.
yeah, my pelvic function we're working on. I still have ways to go, but I've come miles. They told me I had an 87% chance of reoccurrence. And I had the PTSD all the time that it was going to come back and get me. And this year I spent some time with my oncologist and she went over all my records and my blood work's 5-star and everything's just doing great. And she said she's never ever said this to anyone with esophageal cancer, but I took an 87% chance of reoccurrence and I turned it into a 1%.
Amazing, using light stem and the stem cell activation patches, light in your body.
Light in my body and letting my body do something without poisoning it over and over again. My husband's been amazing and sickness depletes our finances. And yet, so many people go out there every day and spend money to be sick. They're going through their drive-throughs for food and just different choices, poor choices. So I used to say the cancer was a divine tap on my shoulder to change my life, but honestly, it was a punch in the face. It wasn't a tap on the shoulder. And I listened to that punch in the face. I've made better choices. I've changed things. And this year when we were doing our taxes, my husband said to me, honey, this is the second year we haven't had any medical deductions.
Wow.
And it's in a way that we're not getting as much money back. And I said, wait a minute, that's so awesome. Because the other years prior, we were deducting thousands of dollars between the prescription drugs, the tests, the treatments. And so now we've been able to save that money and reinvested in the equity of our home. And my husband's doing some DIY renovation in our house because our home had to suffer because my health had to come first. And luckily, we made it without losing our home, but we did lose all of our savings. So we're rebuilding. So LifeWave has helped us not just with my health, but it's healing our financial situation as well, not just by the money I make from LifeWave, but what I'm saving in not going through this medical system that was going to quit on me.
Are you showing us where that is, where you placed it?
No, I was just so I use X39 below my belly button only because I use a lot of lotions, like oils. My skin's oily and I live in Arizona. So if you're really warm, sometimes the patch won't stay on my neck. So I use it below my belly button. I use the X49 right next to it below my belly button. The Eon I used whenever I had inflammation flare-ups. It kind of sits in my medicine cabinet now as a maintenance for me to go to if I need that. The glutathione I do put right at CV22, and I only have to do that 3 days a week, and that reduces my overproduction of mucus and the coughing that was interrupting my sleep or bringing my food back up. I'm also able, to hold and maintain a healthy weight, where before my weight kept dropping, but I was also vomiting and throwing up a lot, because I don't have the esophagus or the setup that someone else has. So it's just been amazing. And my brain is, I have to tell you, one of the biggest things, because I did feel trapped inside and I don't anymore. I want to thank Orange Advanced Medical. I walked in there to get myself my own maintenance program of natural medicine. And the doc asked me what I was doing for my health. And I told him, and then I said patches. And he said, what are they? And the next morning they called me back and said, we need to know more. We need to be using patches. And they now prescribe them to their patients. But where I didn't feel strong enough and confident enough to build my business because of my brain, they have lifted me. And I want to thank them. My team is amazing.